So there I was, Saturday morning, enjoying my coffee and watching squirrels judge my life choices through the kitchen window, when I noticed something peculiar. My perfectly manicured lawn, the one I'd spent 3 months nursing back to health after last winter's salt damage, had suddenly sprouted what appeared to be tire tracks. Let me back up. I'm Dave, 34, software developer, proud owner of a corner house that comes with the mixed blessing of having the neighborhood's most involved resident as my next-door neighbor. Meet Karen Whitmore. And yes, her actual name is Karen, because apparently the universe has a sense of humor darker than my morning espresso. Karen moved in 2 years ago with the energy of someone who'd just discovered HOA bylaws were basically the Bible, but edgier. She's the type who measures grass height with actual rulers and has opinions about mailbox fonts. You know the type, the kind of person who'd complain about your dog barking while simultaneously letting her 3 cats use everyone else's gardens as their personal litter box. The tire tracks, as it turned out, were just the appetizer. By noon, Karen was knocking on my door with that particular smile that says, "I'm about to ask you something unreasonable and expect you to thank me for it." She was wearing what I can only describe as suburban war paint, full makeup at 12 p.m. on a Saturday, because apparently lawn conversations require the full armor. "Dave," she chirped, like we were old friends instead of neighbors who'd exchanged exactly 17 words in 2 years, 16 of which were variations of hello and one unfortunate nice weather. "I have the most wonderful news. My daughter Brittany is getting married next Saturday, and we're having the reception right here in my backyard." I nodded politely, already sensing the incoming freight train of entitlement. "Congratulations. That sounds lovely." "Oh, it will be. We're expecting about 150 guests, and you know how limited parking can be in our little neighborhood." She gestured vaguely at the street, where exactly 0 cars were currently parked because normal people don't need designated parking for existing. "I was hoping, well, I was really counting on using your front and side lawn for guest parking. Just for the day, of course." And there it was. Not asking, not requesting, counting on. I blinked slowly, the way you do when someone asks if they can borrow your kidney for the weekend. "I'm sorry, what now?" "Your lawn, Dave. For parking. I mean, you never use it anyway, and it would be such a huge help. Plus, think of how beautiful all those cars will look, like a proper wedding venue." Beautiful. She thought 150 cars parked on my grass would look beautiful. I was starting to understand why her ex-husband had moved to a different state. "Karen," I said, employing the tone I usually reserved for explaining to clients why their website couldn't have all the colors of the rainbow, but subtle. "I appreciate that you're excited about the wedding, but I can't let people park on my lawn. The grass won't survive it, and frankly, I'm not comfortable with that level of foot traffic on my property." Her smile flickered like a fluorescent bulb in a horror movie. "But Dave, it's just one day, and it's for love. Surely you can make an exception for love." "Ah yes, the love card. Right next to the family card, and the it's just this once card in the entitled person's deck of manipulation. I understand it's important to you, but the answer is no. There are several public parking areas within walking distance. Those are 6 blocks away. You can't expect wedding guests to walk 6 blocks in heels." I could expect a lot of things, including basic respect for property boundaries, but clearly we were operating in different universes. "I'm sorry, Karen, but my answer stands." She left with the kind of tight-lipped smile that promised this conversation was far from over. And boy, was she right. Tuesday brought the first escalation, a printed flyer in my mailbox. Not just any flyer, an official-looking notice with clip art wedding bells and everything. "Neighborhood parking notice," it proclaimed. "Wedding celebration this Saturday. Temporary parking available on corner lot, Dave's property, from 2 to 11 p.m. Please respect the grass and drive carefully." She'd made flyers. Announcing that my lawn was available for parking, complete with my property description and hours of operation, like I was running some sort of boutique valet service. I called her immediately. "Oh, Dave, I was hoping you'd reconsider. I mean, I already told everyone about the parking arrangement, and it would be so embarrassing to have to tell them never mind." "Karen, We never had a parking arrangement. I said no, very clearly. But surely you don't want to ruin a young couple's special day over a little grass. There it was, the grass guilt trip, served with a side of wedding-ruining accusations. Because apparently, protecting my property from being turned into a mud pit made me personally responsible for destroying true love. Wednesday brought reinforcements. Karen's sister, her mother, and what I can only assume was her spiritual advisor, all showing up to explain how I was being unreasonable and how community spirit meant letting neighbors destroy your lawn for special occasions. Thursday brought the stakes. I've already paid the caterer extra for lawn cleanup, Karen announced, as if this was some sort of legally binding contract I'd agreed to in my sleep. By Friday, I was watching Karen direct what appeared to be a small army of wedding planners around my lawn, pointing and gesturing like she was Napoleon, if Napoleon had been really into tool and bad decision-making. That's when I made some calls of my own. Saturday dawned crisp and clear, perfect weather for a wedding, and even more perfect weather for what I had planned. By 8 a.m., I was positioned at my kitchen window with fresh coffee and a front row seat to what was about to become the neighborhood's most memorable event. Karen's backyard was already buzzing with activity, tables being set up, flowers being arranged, and a DJ testing his equipment with what sounded like dying whale calls mixed with elevator music. Around 10 a.m., the first guests started arriving. And sure enough, they started parking on my lawn. Now, I'd placed signs. Bright, visible, impossible-to-miss signs that said, "Private property. No parking. Violators will be towed." I'd put them up Thursday night, after Karen's army of planners had finished their reconnaissance mission. But apparently, wedding guests have the same relationship with reading signs that vampires have with garlic. The first car, a white BMW with the kind of license plate that screamed, "I definitely don't use turn signals," pulled right past my sign and parked squarely in the middle of my front lawn, leaving tire ruts like little scars in my grass. Then came the second car. Then the third. By 11 a.m., my lawn looked like a luxury car dealership had exploded. Mercedes, BMWs, a couple of Audis, and one unfortunate Honda Civic that looked deeply uncomfortable surrounded by all that German engineering. I watched Karen flutter between cars, directing traffic like she owned the place, occasionally glancing at my house with the kind of smug satisfaction usually reserved for cartoon villains. She'd even set up a little wedding parking sign right next to my "No parking" sign, like they were having a polite disagreement. Around noon, she knocked on my door again, this time wearing what I can only describe as mother of the bride battle armor, a dress that cost more than my monthly mortgage and a hat that could have its own zip code. "Dave, thank you so much for letting us use your lawn. I knew you'd come around." She beamed like she'd personally negotiated world peace. "Karen," I said, "I never agreed to this. Those signs clearly say no parking." "Oh, those old things. I figured you'd changed your mind since you didn't come out to stop anyone." She laughed like this was all some delightful misunderstanding. "Besides, look how happy everyone is." I looked. Her guests were indeed happy, wandering around my property like they owned it, a few of them even setting up lawn chairs on my side yard for what appeared to be a pre-ceremony cocktail hour. "Karen, you need to move these cars. Now. Don't be silly. The ceremony starts in 2 hours. You can't expect people to move their cars now." And there it was, the point of no return. She'd crossed the line, set up camp, and was now telling me I couldn't enforce my own property rights because it would be inconvenient for her. "You're right," I said, and I watched her face light up with victory. "I can't expect people to move their cars." "Exactly. I knew you'd be reasonable. That's why I'm having them towed." The color drained from her face so fast I briefly worried she might actually faint on my doorstep, which would have been inconvenient because I had phone calls to make. You're joking, right?" Karen stammered, her victory smile crumbling like a stale wedding cake. "You can't tow wedding guests' cars. That's insane. Actually, it's perfectly legal. Private property, clearly marked signs, and I have a contract with Bulldog Towing." I pulled out my phone. They're surprisingly affordable for weekend service. "But the wedding, the ceremony, people won't be able to leave." Should have thought of that before you turned my lawn into a parking lot. Karen's face went through more color changes than a mood ring in a tumble dryer. Dave, please. Be reasonable. I'll pay for any grass damage. You're right, you will. Along with the towing fees if you want to get your guests' cars back. I made the call while she stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish trying to argue with its aquarium. Hi, Mike. Yeah, it's Dave. That situation we discussed? It's a go. Within 20 minutes, the first tow truck rumbled down our quiet suburban street like a mechanical harbinger of doom. Mike, the owner of Bulldog Towing, climbed out with the kind of grin that suggested this was the highlight of his weekend. Afternoon, Dave. Looks like you've got yourself a nice collection here. He gestured at the automotive lawn ornaments scattered across my grass. Private property, clearly marked signs? Yep, all documented with photos and timestamps. Beautiful. This is going to be fun. The first car hooked up was the BMW. Its owner, a middle-aged man in a tuxedo who looked like he'd never encountered a problem his credit card couldn't solve, came running over as his precious German engineering was being lifted onto the truck bed. Hey, that's my car. You can't tow my car. Sure can, Mike replied cheerfully. Private property violation. Your car will be at the impound lot on Industrial Boulevard. They're open 24/7, and the fee is $200 plus $50 per day storage. $200. This is extortion. Nope, this is capitalism. Should have read the signs. By now, word had spread through the wedding party faster than gossip at a church bake sale. Guests were running from the backyard ceremony setup to discover their cars being loaded onto trucks with the efficiency of a military operation. Karen was in full panic mode, running between guests and trying to explain how this was all a terrible misunderstanding, while shooting me looks that could have melted steel. Several bridesmaids, their careful makeup now streaked with tears of rage, were frantically calling Ubers while cursing in languages I didn't recognize. The bride herself, poor Brittany, who'd had the misfortune of being born to Hurricane Karen, appeared in her full wedding dress, looking like Cinderella if Cinderella's fairy godmother had been a vindictive property owner. Mom, what's happening? Why are people's cars being towed? Karen tried to explain while I watched 3 more vehicles get hooked up. The Honda Civic went without much fanfare, but the Mercedes owner threatened to call his lawyer, the police, and what sounded like either the governor or his golf buddy. Hard to tell with all the shouting. By 3 p.m., when the ceremony was supposed to start, half the wedding guests were either waiting for tow trucks to finish their work or frantically trying to arrange alternative transportation. The other half were standing around my lawn looking like they'd just witnessed a natural disaster, which, in a way, they had. Karen made one final desperate attempt at negotiation. Dave, please. I'll pay you. Name your price. Just tell them to put the cars back. Karen, the cars are already at the impound lot. That's how towing works. But don't worry, your guests can get them back anytime. For $200 each, plus storage fees. You're destroying my daughter's wedding. No, you destroyed your daughter's wedding when you decided my property was yours to give away. The ceremony did eventually happen, about 2 hours late and with roughly half the expected guests. Those who remained had to park 6 blocks away, imagine that, and walk back in their formal wear. The ones who stayed seemed to enjoy the reception well enough, though there was a distinctly subdued atmosphere, possibly due to the ongoing parade of tow trucks that continued throughout the evening as more guests discovered their relocated vehicles. Brittany, to her credit, seemed to handle the chaos with more grace than her mother had ever shown. During the reception, she actually came over to apologize. I'm really sorry about all this, she said, looking genuinely embarrassed. I didn't know Mom was planning to use your lawn without asking. Not your fault, Brittany. Congratulations, by the way. Your husband seems like a good guy. He is. And honestly, this might be the most memorable wedding story we'll ever have. Smart kid. She was definitely going to be fine. Karen, on the other hand, spent the rest of the evening alternating between glaring at me through her windows and fielding angry phone calls from wedding guests who'd discovered that weekend impound lot fees were higher than weekday rates. The final tally, 23 cars towed, approximately $4,600 in towing and storage fees paid by various wedding guests, and one very expensive lesson in property rights. The best part? Monday morning brought a formal apology letter from Karen, along with a check for $800 to cover lawn restoration costs. Apparently, her homeowner's insurance didn't cover neighborly disputes arising from unauthorized lawn usage, and several of the wedding guests had made it very clear who they held responsible for their unexpected expenses. I used the money to install a lovely new sprinkler system and some decorative fencing. Because nothing says good neighbors like clear boundaries. Karen waves when she sees me now. A polite, careful wave from someone who's learned that sometimes the quiet neighbor is the one you should worry about most. And me? I wave back, because I'm nothing if not neighborly. Besides, my lawn has never looked better. Thank you for being with us. Please share in the comments where you are watching from and whether you liked everything, and see you next time.